think I'm going to call this month May-Tember. Good morning, YouTube. Tired Metalhead Weatherman here. A lot to cover in the video today based on the amount of tabs that you already see, so prepare yourself. It's going to be a lengthy one. I'm going to involve timestamps in this, so that way if anything piques your interest, you can just skip right ahead to that part without having to watch the full video. I know the longer videos aren't always the most fun thing to watch. Also, if you could, definitely make sure you're hitting that like button and hitting that subscribe button if you're new to these videos. Also, make sure you're getting that bell on because it looks like I'm going to be very active over the next few weeks because we both got severe weather and the tropics involved. Like I said in the early part of the video, this is pretty much unheard of, or at least it is to me. Literally, we have severe weather going on almost like it's May and June all together, and then we have tropics acting like it's September, because over towards this part of the Atlantic here, this usually doesn't happen until about September or August maybe. So I don't know what the heck's going on. Just the fact that we've switched from a weak La Nina to a strong El Nino probably plays a huge part in this, but that's going to be a whole nother video in and of itself if I can even find the time to make it. Tried to make a video last night, but I was beat up from work. I was out of it. I'm sorry, guys. I try to give you the best content I can. I just didn't think I was going to be able to. That, and I was too late getting home from work to cover the storms last night. I know there was a lot of activity. 7 tornado reports, 125 wind, and 26 hail. So that being said, we're caught up now. Let's go ahead and look at all the days ahead here. So here we are looking at today's slight risk. It's a bimodal threat. Gulf Coast states, you can't seem to get away from it, honestly, at this point. Do have a marginal tornado threat, 2%. Could be an upgrade there. Maybe I'm not. I'm honestly a little bit optimistic about it, staying at 2% right now, but we'll see what happens. 15% definitely verifies with this threat over here towards the north in the Dakotas. The storm vectors are going to be more so to the northeast than anything else, or a more northerly component from what I've seen in recent models. Then over towards the Gulf Coast, it's going to be pretty much more of a southern component. With this one, we have to worry about storms getting closer to the Gulf here and maybe going supercellular possibly. But the threat isn't as intense as what we've seen recently. Hail is also a big thing over here towards the northern threat here towards the Dakotas, and then the southern threat over here towards the Gulf Coast states. Threats there could be upgraded to 15%, but I think the lapse rates are going to keep this one at 5. But that's just day 1. Day 2, more widespread threat. In fact, they expanded this slight risk area. It was originally kind of based more towards the western high plains here, but now we have Cheyenne, we have Garden City, Liberal, Kansas, Colby, Kansas. Now we're even stretching south now though into Texas and Oklahoma, especially western Oklahoma, panhandle of Texas. Even Abilene could be in the action here. We still have that marginal risk up north though into the Dakotas here, so we're starting to see the northern plains get into the action just a little bit here. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Southern Georgia, southern Florida, we're watching you as well tomorrow. Hazards are pretty much the same. The tornado threat is actually mainly going to be based over towards west Nebraska and eastern Colorado, northeastern Colorado, and southeastern Wyoming even, including Cheyenne. So we'll keep an eye on this. There could be a potential for upgrade. I'm actually going to be looking at the GFS this time for the wind pattern. But looking at the wind threat for tomorrow, 2 15% areas. We're going to have to see how that unfolds, and then our 5% area, of course, is going to be over towards Florida. And then our hail threat is going to be mainly based around this new storm system that's come in. I did mention that a trough was going to be coming in across this region, which was going to throw severe weather into the equation for some of these more northern states, and it looks like that's coming to fruition. Day 3 is a marginal risk right now, but I do see potential for it to be upgraded to a slight risk in a lot of the same areas too. some of these storm chasers are going to be really happy about this because they've been talking about how they haven't been up to the more northern states. I guess they also like to sightsee along the way, which I can't blame them. But we got Kansas, Colorado, and Wyoming into play again. I think the threat with this will also be wind and hail. Can't rule out tornadoes, but the threat's not going to be as impressive starting out. But later down the line, look at this. And I've been particularly hearing about Wednesday a good bit over the overnight hours. Cheyenne, the National Weather Service in Cheyenne is looking at a potential for severe outbreak on this one. Much better setup apparently exists with this. And then on day 5, we have Omaha and Lincoln getting into the action for the first time in a while. Then we have Missouri getting in there too, Iowa, a good chunk of Minnesota too, as well as South Dakota. This is on Friday, so we're going to be keeping an eye on that as well. And on days 6, 7, and 8, there are no risk areas at the moment, but predictability is too low, not potential. So we'll have to watch these dates as well. So this is just, like I said, this is just the start of things. So I'm going to do a quick run through on today's threat. I'm going to just throw the models forth here. We're going to look mainly at the wind pattern. We already know that there's going to be good moisture return here based off yesterday's video. But if we look at the wind profile, the main area to look at is towards the mid-levels of the atmosphere and maybe the upper levels as well. When we look at the mid-levels, as we get into the evening here, setup starts to look favorable, more so for damaging winds. But like I said, if we're watching the motion of this really closely, it's more of a northeastward type component. So areas like Minnesota today, I wouldn't expect so much severe weather. You could get some showers and storms. You may not get anything at all. But today it looks like a lot of you guys are out of the line of fire. Low-level jet actually looks rather unimpressive, and I think that's what partially keeps the tornado threat down. It does try to surge back up after about 8 p.m. Central Time, so that's going to have to be watched still. But overall, the tornado threat up there isn't that impressive. When we look over towards the southeastern coast, over towards the Gulf here, not really much going on there. It's not a lot of, okay, pop-ups. Don't know why that's happened. But as a whole, the low-level jet isn't that strong. Mid-level jet isn't that strong over towards this region either as we get later into the day. There's enough juice over there for some forcing, but that's about it. Then when we go ahead and take a look at the dew points, a pretty similar deal. Actually, I should have just pulled this window up. Like I said, it's pretty similar across the board. Strong returns, especially over towards the north here with the corn sweat being involved. Corn sweat is basically these little corn crops over here being influenced by a particular wind pattern that ends up increasing the overall humidity and dew points over these regions. And that's why we can sometimes get significant severe events further up north, because the Gulf of Mexico moisture rarely can make it this far and have this kind of rich value. Like, here's a good example. Here's an area that doesn't really get as much corn sweat. For example, over towards this section right here. But what will happen is that corn sweat will get up into the air and the upper level winds will carry this forward. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. It's a prime example of it. I can make a whole video about that and how it works. It's pretty interesting, actually. But obviously I don't have time today. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the parameters really quickly, and then we're going to scramble into the upper pattern setup. So here's a look at the CAPE. This is convective available potential energy. Very important when it comes to severe weather development. You can almost refer to this as thunderstorm fuel. This is basically like jet fuel for thunderstorms. And over here towards the northern plains here, we seem to have plenty of it. In fact, we've seen quite an uptick here in the last day in the amount of CAPE available. And this is mixed layer. When we look at mixed layer, that looks at all levels of the atmosphere. The fact that we're seeing an increase in that tells me that there's going to be a much higher surface CAPE. In fact, there is at over 4,900 joules per kilogram. More than sufficient enough for severe weather. Very weak cap in play, but actually I've seen a little uptick here in the hodiographs here. I wasn't really impressed yesterday, but this looks a little bit better. We could have a couple of embedded tornadoes, but the threat isn't insane with that. The main threat, as I said before, I'm more concerned with is the damaging wind threat. Storms look like they were very linear on radar. Could be a couple embedded supercells, but we're seeing that through the D-Cape here. Like I said before in many other videos, 1,000 joules per kilogram on D-Cape is usually a good indicator for damaging wind. This is at 1354. So this is a great sounding to use as an example here, not much contamination. So that being said, that's what we have going on with the threat to the north, over towards the southeast. Main concern would be Louisiana to me today if there was going to be any kind of tornado threat. And when we click that, the hodiograph doesn't look quite as impressive, but look at that storm vector, just as I told you about, almost pointed dead south here. Plenty of cape though, so that could be enough to help these storms produce significant weather still. Damaging wind definitely seems like a most favorable threat with this still. When I look at lapse rates here, I'm seeing 6s, a couple of 7s possible, but in the upper levels of the atmosphere, you really want those to be at 7 to 7. Over here, in this case, is a little bit more towards the low level. That being said, though, still interesting to see the potential for a tornado threat here, too. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this. But that's what that's pretty much the setup for today. We go into the long range here. We're going with the GFS now. We're going to look at the upper level wind pattern in particular. We'll try to look at multiple levels if we got time. I think we should. But here's our trough through today and into tonight coming into play here. Trough is really ejecting north of the border here, so it's going to keep severe weather kind of limited with this, but when we get into Thursday, this is where things get more concerning. Here's a much deeper trough that's starting to dig in here. And what's going to happen with that is, you see this little area right here where we have this kind of almost ski jump-esque type setup with this, almost what I would describe as like a small pocket of maximums here. It's like a little squall line almost. It's going to be a point of forcing, and it's going to allow new storms to fire throughout the evening on Thursday. So it could be a pretty widespread event here if this holds out. But as time goes on here, we get the setup going into Friday. Pretty similar deal, almost a ski jump like setup, but also the forcing is a little bit further back. What concerns me is these isobars are a little bit spread apart. It's not a tight gradient. If they were a tighter gradient, I'd be more concerned about damaging winds, but you want more subtle forcing to get those discrete supercells to develop. Not saying that's exactly what will happen, but this could be a sign of things to come here. So we'll have to keep an extra close eye on both the western high plains, even into the deep southern plains, and maybe even more so towards the eastern half of the plains heading into the Midwest. This also looks like it starts to persist into Saturday. Maybe we could see more of possibly Minnesota, Iowa into the action here. This is looking a lot like some of the setups I was seeing towards March and April. Maybe not quite as impressive, but again, we're still a little bit further out than what I would like to be in order to really start reading into things further, especially reading into hordiographs. Because once you get to about 100 plus hours out, it's kind of hard to nail things down. Not unless they're just screaming at you. I mean, they kind of are, but I'm also kind of stretched on time too. Or I'm kind of stretching it thin on time. But let me go ahead and keep going here before I run out of time. But this definitely looks like we could see additional severe weather here across Minnesota, Iowa, maybe even Wisconsin. So this persists even into Sunday. We have to keep an eye on that. But this could be an early morning threat for Wisconsin. Then it looks like we start to see the potential for Dixie Alley and the southeast Tennessee Valley starting to come back into play here, as this jet stream starts to dissolve just a tiny bit, or this trough, I should say, not jet stream. And then right behind it, there's another trough that comes in, so we could see North Dakota, South Dakota getting back into play again. And then as time goes on, it's pretty much going to be a rinse repeat type deal. That looks a little bit interesting over here. That could become a big factor as well. Again, other parameters have to be present as well, but the kinematic pattern definitely indicates that we are far from finished into severe weather, and if anything, this might even persist into a good chunk of, at least the start of July here. You're starting to maybe see indicators of the pattern shifting a bit here and a ridge beginning to develop, which will quiet things down for some of us. Nonetheless, though, towards the western plains, we may start to see more activity there. And how long will this pattern last? I still haven't really seen an indicator of it being done just yet. That being said, let's go ahead and now take a look at the dew points. I'm actually going to just play this in a whole loop here. So here we are looking at Tuesday and Wednesday, getting into Thursday here. I'm actually going to speed this up a little bit so I can get this done for you guys faster. But moist sector seems pretty abundant, and at times with Tuesday and Wednesday I'm seeing a little bit more indicators of dry lines possible too. So a lot of stuff going on here. We're gonna have to be watchful all the way through the end of this month, and maybe July may not be July here. Like I said, we're in a really weird place right now because of the way La Nina just changed to El Nino. Like I said, that's another video in and of itself to make. I can answer some questions on it, but really I think the best way to do that is to go really in depth. I might try to make a video within the next week or so if I can find time. Not sure if I'm going live tonight. I'm willing to though. So like I said, we're just gonna have to cross that bridge whenever we get there. Kind of more in a reactive phase at this point, to be honest. So looking at the weather as a whole, we have of course increased storm activity over towards the southeast. Almost have a secondary little storm system off the east coast here that's going to be causing increasingly disturbed weather. Here's some more severe storms expected across the heart of the country, and then over time we'll start to see that move off to the east while a new system comes in. We already discussed a lot of this, and that's pretty much just going to be the pattern as a whole here. As we continue to go on and more storm systems come in, here's something that could be an indicator of a tropical system that we need to be watching as we get into the beginning of July, which is really interesting. And then as time goes on, this could very well induce a bit of a pattern change here, maybe inducing a bit of a ridge, which could mercifully end some of the severe weather potential for just a little bit here. But this is towards the end of the run. I do see another interesting low pressure system here over towards the Dakotas, and this could influence severe weather, but it's too far out to tell right now whether or not this will or will not do it. This is a 16-day run, by the way. Now, let's get into the tropics. So, like I said, this is a long video. We have Tropical Storm Bret now, which is crazy to say, because usually June doesn't produce two named storms this year, and then also there's pretty high potential for another one to develop here. This is at 60%, by the way, and on this, if we look on the 7-day outlook here, this goes up to 70, and it's pretty much right on the coattails of Bret. I'm a bit concerned, honestly, as to where Bret could end up. I think the wind pattern is actually favorable for it to maybe make impact towards Puerto Rico and maybe even Hispaniola. So I have my concerns about this right now. So let's go ahead and actually look at the cone real quick. And what we even notice here is that there's a chance for this to strengthen into a hurricane. With the way the wind pattern is too, from what I've seen in previous runs, also there's a chance that Jamaica could come into play too. Depending on how this strengthens, we could see this make a turn to the northeast, or this could even get into the Gulf. We really don't want this getting into the Gulf, because not only would the probability of landfall be much higher, but also the fact that the Gulf waters are extremely warm still. That's one thing that hasn't changed regardless of whether we've been in a La Nina or El Nino. So this is the game's definitely changing here. That's for sure. So let's be extra watchful of Bret here, especially if you are in a hurricane-prone area in the U.S. Not saying that this is going to hit. There's a pretty good chance that it won't right now. But, of course, we know how quickly things can change. If by chance, Dominican Republic, anyone from Puerto Rico, Haiti, anyone from Hispaniola, Jamaica, even Cuba, or even the Yucatan here, I hope that you are watching this storm, because this is going to be a factor come next week if this holds together, which it looks like it very well might. So that being said, let's go ahead and look at some model data here. So as a whole here right now, we're looking at the latest GFS ensemble. We're looking at vorticity here. So any of these little more broader areas here with the concentrated colors here of orange and beyond, that's indicative of spin. And typically, whenever you see those little organized areas like this, that usually is an indicator of a tropical entity. We don't see too many that pop up after this point, thankfully, right now, but there's those tiny little pockets here and there that are influencing these wind barbs to move. So there could be additional tropical waves to watch as we go throughout the rest of this month and into July. As we go further and further into hurricane season, things tend to be more active too, so that also has to be taken into account. So we'll have to be watching this really closely. Also, we're going to make a comparison with the European model run here. And it's a pretty similar deal. We have those two tropical lows right now, and then, of course, other pieces of energy are possible. It looks like there could be a little bit of something here. I do think this is a little too far to the north for it to develop, but Arlene formed pretty far to the north as well, so that you have to take that with a grain of salt as well. Like I said, pretty similar deal across the board with both models. We have good agreement between the two. And then when we go ahead and take a look at the dynamics, say the wind shear, for example, this is kind of the opposite of tornadoes. You don't want much in the way of wind shear. So I'm going to put this into a loop here. We're getting more so into current time. And like I said, the wind shear is strong, but we stay in a pocket right here where these storms are able to kind of flourish a little bit, but it looks like towards the beginning of July we start to get back into more of that shutdown like mode. The further east these storms go, the less chance they'll have to develop. But interesting to note, after the first week in July, maybe we could be seeing a little bit of change here. So let's go ahead and switch that over to the EPS. It'll be a pretty similar deal for the most part. These models have been in very good agreement as of late, which has been a little bit reassuring with making forecasts on these tropical systems. So confidence can be a little bit higher as a result. So here's our tropical lows here. Like I said, it's a nice little pocket that they're in right now where the wind shear is light. Wind shear does pick back up towards the end of the month, and then we could cycle into the beginning of July with a little bit stronger wind shear. That being said, let's switch these areas over to the Western Atlantic here. I'm going to do both of these areas real quick because that's going to be where these tropical lows are going to end up next, and also Bret. So here we go, taking a look at the European first. Over towards the Caribbean, the waters don't seem like they're that friendly when it comes to the wind shear here, but it does lighten up a little bit around the 25th. So that, like I said, this is going to have to be watched very closely. Will these storms be able to make it through? That is the key question here. And it's pretty much a similar deal for the GFS ensemble here. The wind shear looks just about the same, so there's good confidence that we can have that these storms may not make it through the Caribbean. Maybe they will. I do anticipate wind shear becoming a factor, though, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, I mean, there's a little pocket right here, but I think the wind shear gets in around the eastern side, and I think that's what's going to come into play here. So that being said, a lot to be watching here. No new storms really expected to form across this region here because, like I said, the wind shear is pretty strong the further west we go, not east. Let me correct myself earlier in the video. But as a whole, though, while there's a lot going on, I don't think the tropics are going to affect the U.S., but over here towards the Antilles, the Lesser Antilles, maybe Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, I'd watch you guys a little bit closer. But that being said here, like I said before in the early part of the video, make sure you're hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, that share button. Also, make sure that if you have any questions in the comments, be sure to just fire away. I'll answer as many as I can. Gonna be a little sketchy considering the fact that my high-speed internet on my phone's a little bit used up, so it's gonna be difficult. But that being said, though, I'm gonna close this video out. This has been Tired Metalhead Weatherman. I'll see you guys later this afternoon, regardless of whether it's live or just another video.